Let me just share this video with my group. Okay. Good. Well, that's there. Hi, good morning. All right. Let's get started. I wanted to, this is normally a topic I would be talking about in my group, fire and flow. And, you know, for those of you who don't know about my groups, you know, Fire and Flow is where I teach sort of all of the foundations of energetic mastery and energetic alchemy and the working with and building of sexual fire. So I felt like there's a lot on this topic lately, and I've had some questions in my group about it. And so I wanted to kind of unpack it a little bit this morning. Okay, so I want to start out by saying that, you know, when I teach masculine and feminine, like masculine and feminine can show up with gender, but I also, when I teach masculine and feminine, I also, to me, when I teach it, it's like the creative life force that comes through all of us is the feminine, and the mind is the masculine. The ego is the masculine. And so I think it's really important that I kind of set that up, because I think it's an important piece to understand about how I frame this particular topic, and it's relevant. So, anger, okay? Anger, there's like a couple of different ways to unpack anger and rage. And I think that they are a little bit different. Anger to me is an affront to the ego. So anger is a response to an ego that has been challenged. Okay, like it is not embodied usually. It is quite mental, and it is when the mind has an experience that is against its idea of itself, or when the reality that we are experiencing is different than the expectations that we might have. Okay, so let me back this in and bring some things up here. So the responsibility of the feminine, like, and let me just go back to the responsibilities of the masculine and feminine in my world anyway, in my lineage. The responsibility of the feminine is to open, receive, and to be crystal clear about her desire and communicate it effectively. That is a mature feminine. Okay, doesn't mean that she doesn't need help. Doesn't mean that she, you know, in fact she does, right? Because part of the adult feminine is to receive, is to be open. It is to be a channel. Yeah, for life force, for creation. Receiving and giving, right? It's actually to be used. Okay, don't get all fucked up about that word. Okay, but it is to allow to be a portal and a channel of life force. Okay, the job of the masculine is to be in service of that opening. Okay, not to take the life force, not to use it for the egoic needs, okay? When I say to be used, I'm talking about used by life force and spirit, I'm not talking about to be used by a gendered male. And I'm definitely not talking about being used by your own egoic preferences for achievement in the third dimensional realm. Okay? And if you're getting lost on some of this, don't worry about it. You're getting I'm inserting it into your being at the moment. So, anger. Okay? Anger and rage. Okay, so like when I think about mature feminine rage, mature feminine rage is like, get the fuck away from my children. I will fucking kill you. Right? Like mama bear. That is primal. That is like embedded in the embodiment of your being. Yeah? This is a primal, biological, this is biological. We are talking about the animal that we are. This is a biological intelligence that we have been given to check the external. Okay? It is literally a protection mechanism, like from a basic fundamental thing, like literally to protect us physically. Yeah? Physically. Now, how does this evolve? So, historically, okay, the issue we have here is that like when like what has happened, okay, is that there has been a historical suppressing of this natural primal response in the collective, which basically is like your hysterical come down. And what it's done is it's and I hate using the word gaslighting, okay, so I'm gonna just stay away from it. I know that that word is in the air, and I'm just gonna just pause with that word for a second, but let's just unpack it, because I don't like using language that's so codified that we can't actually understand what it is, okay? But the idea is, so we have, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this beautifully, okay, which is that over time, we have moved from a soul and life force based world to an egoic world. Let's not even just talk about men and women. Okay, let's just talk about soul and life force versus ego. Okay, we now live in a world that has been taken over by ego. And the majority of the population and collective in the world is not embodied. They are living in their egoic mind in a total illusion of reality. Okay? And that reality is built up of collective beliefs, familial beliefs, personal beliefs and experiences, and it's just a whole projection of how people experience the world. And it's really convenient, right, for the world that we've built, considering that most of what we've built, as we are seeing today, as you know, like millions of people are losing their jobs, is that our entire world is kind of built on smoke and mirrors of meaninglessness. And so the way that we continue to prop up meaninglessness is that we assign meaning to it. We literally assign meaning to things to make ourselves feel good about what it is that we're doing. We identify with our behaviors. We identify with our achievements and all of this stuff, and all of this stuff gets built up, okay? And then in the interest of that, so here's where the feminine life force piece comes in. And like this is from everything from kind of like a level of rage, but also like you can see it in Mother Nature. right? Like people are like, oh, the feminine is so soft and sweet. And I'm like, feminine is fucking tsunami and a tornado and COVID-19. Okay. The feminine is the thing, the force that will literally come through and rip everything to shit and pull it back to the ground so that it can regrow in alignment. The feminine is meant to keep alignment. The feminine is connected to the deepest truth. The body is connected to the deepest truth. The deepest truth is not here, people. It is not in a fucking peer-reviewed study. This is what kills me. It's like we've like, this is like when the masculine comes in and is like, oh my goodness, we did a peer-reviewed study on breastfeeding, and guess what? It's really good for your baby. Well, no fucking shit. I am so glad that you did that research to make sure that what we knew without the data was actually true. So like, don't be confused by that, okay? Now, where does this become problematic? Because we have an adolescent collective in general, okay? We just have an emotionally adolescent collective. And so what's happened is, with so much suppression and very little example of mature feminine leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not talking about masculine leadership. I'm talking about women who are embodied in their power and their life force without emasculating men, because mature women don't need to emasculate men, who understand how to have boundaries and ask for their desire without doing all of the preferential princess bullshit or doing all the hooker commerce bullshit or anything like that. Like, women, ladies, there is a whole upgrade happening. There is a whole upgrade happening. It has been needed for centuries. Centuries. Because what's happening is the male ego, and I'm not even going to actually, the masculine ego, so the ego running in everyone, is the thing that needs to be reoriented right now. What is that going to take? It might take some fire. It might take some fire. And in my practice, fire burns ego. So let's, if we're going to allow for fire to build, okay? See, you don't take fire and then throw it at someone else. Do you know who does that? A little girl does that. And you're not a little girl. You're a fucking woman. Okay? And it's time to grow up. And so this isn't meant to shame you, okay? This is really meant to just fucking lay it out here of like, there is a level of responsibility when you have fire of what you do with it. And see, this is when you have an adolescent feminine collective who think that they are entitled to their rage and anger and to just throw it like a flamethrower wherever they want. Now, the problem with that, okay, is not that, like, believe me, if I want to use my fire to fucking set something straight, I am doing it with 100% love. It is backed by love. It is not backed by my fucking butthurt ego, and it is not backed by my being wronged or my entitled to some justice or my entitled to some apology or anything like that. It is with love. And that is the piece that you've got to work out on your own. So you may have been wronged. I guarantee you were wronged. And here's the other thing. Anger is a protective emotion, right? We talked about this in terms of it being a biological thing. Anger and rage also show up when there is an emotion underneath the surface. And that emotion is grief. And it's like our world does not want to grieve. It is so fucking inconvenient to have grief. It is so vulnerable. It is so dismissed, because we dismiss the feminine as not powerful. Grief is dismissed as weak. It's dismissed as non-functional, inconvenient. It's down there. You might get stuck down there and never come back. You might need medication if you start ending up on that. No, no, no. No, your fear of grief is what perpetuates the lack of balance in the world. Your fear of going down is what perpetuates the imbalance in the world. If you're a woman and you can't handle your own down, how the fuck do you think any man is ever going to have approval of that part of you? They're just reflecting back to us what we already think about ourselves. And many women who have figured out how to turn on their fire use it for masculine gain. Use it as trickery. Use it for manipulation. Use it to literally game the system that you supposedly can't stand, as opposed to using that full life force power that you have, owning it, having full responsibility for it, and creating something new. Now, that's some damn fucking strong responsibility, isn't it? See, when women come to me, and this is like the core of my work, it's literally everything, because I have an enormous amount of fire, enormous. Like, I was just born with it. My teacher is like, she's like, Perry, you were just born energetically wealthy. Like, I've got a trust fund of fucking energetic wealth. I don't have to cultivate my fire. It is fucking on. And the responsibility of that is that I understand how to hold it and be responsible for it and use it properly. And so this is where women come to me. And this is the basis for everything. This is the basis for magic-led business. This is the basis for all of the work that I do with people coming out and full expression. Because until you are responsible for this fire, you are going to misuse it in all kinds of ways, including anger and rage. And see, because when you come back, you can have every emotion. Believe me, I have a lot of approval for every single state. But the thing is, what you learn to do is you learn to be responsible for it and hold it. And sometimes you'll have certain places where you have containers where people can hold it for you. Sure. But it is not for you to walk around and off-gas your power that you can't hold, that you haven't done the work to hold in your body, including your trauma, including all of your past stuff. Guys, it's still your responsibility. It is still your responsibility. I walked around like a triggered hot button nuclear bomb for like 20 years of my life. And do you know what? It was my responsibility to do the work, to learn how to hold and use the system that I have and have been given. That is my responsibility. It is not someone's fault. It is not about blame. It's like, shit, there's stuff to heal here. I get really fucking triggered. I get really reactive when I see that. Okay, well, that's the thing that I need to work on. It's not his fault. See, the other thing too, and talking about grief, is that one of the biggest sources of grief is self-abandonment. And this is one that women really, sucks to look at this. It sucks to look at how many times you have abandoned your deepest knowing. Your deepest knowing. In exchange for love, connection, safety. What else? What else have you just exchanged your life force for? See, that realization, that's growing up. Like, damn, I fucking dated an alcoholic who was abusive because I wasn't feeling very confident in myself at the time. And I basically like bought him dinner and stuff. And I thought that he would never leave me because he was so much less than me. God, that is such a fucking painful admission. But you got to make those admissions. And yes, you may have childhood trauma. The majority of us do. And it doesn't make you less responsible. See, this is the thing. It's like, I have compassion for all of it, but there's a place for it and there's a willingness to address it. Like I will work with anybody on any level of thing. And I've gotten people through all kinds of trauma, okay? To a place where, because the thing about trauma is that you need to work your nervous system. You need to take your nervous system to the gym. That is really how you, because what happens, trauma is an embodied, it's an embodied response, an involuntary response in the body, in response to stimuli that brings up past experiences that got stuck and haven't been healed. And so like how you really work with trauma is you expand the nervous system. You have to expand the nervous system, the capacity, your range to hold sensation. And see, and that's another thing too, is that like we have these immature, and I'm sorry to use that word because it does have a little bit of judgment in it, but you have these immature women walking around just like off-gassing. It's like, oh, the container of my body just can't hold all of my power and rage, and I'm so hurt and so like, and it's like, you think I'm gonna fucking hold that for you? Grow up. Learn how to hold it. This is what it is. And I'll teach you how to hold it. I'll show you the path on how to hold it. I had to do it. And if I had to do it, you have to do it too. But it's possible. I am the walking, embodied example of the possibility of this. You can't out-trauma me. I don't even talk about the things that I've experienced in my life, if you notice. Because I am not interested in trauma bonding with people. I am not interested in your pity. I am not interested in you connecting to me through your pain. But let me tell you something. You are not gonna out-trauma me. There is nothing that you could bring to me that is out of the range of possibility of working with. Okay? It's all possible. And isn't that possibility amazing? But see, you have to be willing to feel the grief that is underneath the anger. So here, let's look at this for a second. So there's the anger. Well, let's talk about the grief one first, okay? So because that's where we're at. Grief is like a detonation. Grief is gonna unravel you. It is gonna, I mean, it's beautiful. Like once you like have true approval for the feminine, grief is stunning. It is a stunning, gorgeous emotion because it literally washes you of anything that isn't real. It's like pulling the thread out of a sweater and just letting everything unravel. And when you really come to appreciate the process of the feminine, the unraveling, the undoing, the dyeing, the mulch, like all of this stuff is just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it just takes you all the way down. And it's this collective poison of not trusting this process, of not trusting the deep feminine, that brings us into like a treading water, I like to call it. And so like on your way down, you're like, no, I don't really want to go down. I don't want to really go down. I don't want to really go down. And that's kind of where depression lands, because what happens is you don't follow it all the way down. You don't allow it to take you. You don't trust. You don't trust God. You don't trust life. You don't trust. And when you get to the bottom, this is what I always say, like, because I have mastered this one, which is like, I let that saying take me to the bottom like a rock. And when I say bottom, I am talking about like I can go all the way to suicidal, all the way to like where my mind breaks, and like I've got this one, okay? And I'm not saying this is for everyone, you know, it takes a certain amount of practice to actually be able to do that. But you can take it all the way down, because what's happening is your ego is getting fucking annihilated. And then you know what's at the bottom? You know what's at the bottom of that? There's like an oxygen tank with like rich nutrients that just like replenish the truth in you, unravel what needs to go, and then the truth can arise and you come out and you're like, wow, I felt so good. I'm so glad I dropped that stuff off down there. Okay. But see, anger also comes with the flailing of that. And see, this is how you have to be really careful that your anger is not actually preventing you from going in and down, right? There's a surrender underneath there. And generally things that you may not want to see and look at. And by the way, that's your ego, right? So your ego is literally getting crushed on the way down, so it can reorder. So I want to bring something else in here too, which is sabotage, and this pattern of sabotage. And what my teacher said to me, and what I explain to women is like there's intelligence in sabotage. So you have to be careful. If you are constantly blowing up your life, then you need to really look at like, well, how aligned is your life with the truth really? Or is your ego building your life in terms of how it thinks that you should be, and you should look, and you should have these things, and you should do this achievement, and blah, 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 blah. And then your life force, which you're probably not that in touch with, is always like fucking blowing shit up. You know, all kinds of coming out your ears way. And then it's like you hate the chaos because it just blew up your sandcastle that you shouldn't have been building anyway. Right? So then what happens is there's even more demonization of the feminine, because she's coming in and she's fucking just, she's the wave. She's the COVID-19. She's knocking shit down. And you're like, damn that fucking bitch. Blah, blah, blah. I built a sandcastle. I gotta go build another fucking sandcastle. Oh my God, why am I such a terrible person? I'm such a terrible person because I can't do it. I keep knocking things down. I'm just all a ball of chaos. And then you're victimized by your own power. Victimized by your own soul's intelligence that says like, hey, babe, this one isn't for you. Can you maybe let it go? I'm tired of having to knock it down. Okay, but then there's this other thing. And this also lives in the land of the immature feminine, which is, it's in the golden pussy land of preferences and conditions. And like, it has to be perfect. It has to be this for me to open. Okay? No. And then you are constantly victimized by everything in life, and you get angry. You get angry because your idea of reality what it is. And then you're like, you know, and then you get all grippy, and you get even tighter and can't get anything up that sphincter because it's so fucking tight. And guess what? Then you're small because you can't receive anything, and you wonder why you're not fully expressed, and you wonder why, you know, and then you're not angry, you're resentful. Okay, let's also delineate the difference between anger and resentment. Resentful is when you're blaming something outside of yourself for, like, I'm resentful at that thing. And really, it comes all back to this, like, out of alignment with responsibility, of power, choice, all of these things. And really, it's you not being in service to your life force. Now, do I think the world could use a little bit of rage? I don't even think we need it. I think you know, COVID-19 is going to do just fine. If these things come, the feminine waves come. And let me explain to you that the feminine waves, like when the feminine is serious, see, this comes with clarity of desire. When my desire is clear and I communicate it, it is instant motherfucking creation. That is, forget about this law of attraction bullshit. Let me explain to you how creation happens. The feminine, the life force, is clear and responsible for her desire. Not like, so it's not that you can't get outside help. Okay, so listeners, this is not an emasculation to the masculine. This is I want this. I said, honey, I think we need to grow a garden. And I was really clear about it. Honey, I think we need to prepare. I think we need, and you know what? My clarity of desire, my approval, my love, and it's happening. It's just, it doesn't always have to be through me. It can be through him. But, you know, we also have this other thing too, where he has a desire and then I just create it. So it doesn't have to be like all this weird man-woman stuff, okay? It's how aligned are you with creative life force? And how well in service are the skills that you have as a human being in service to that? Or are you using your divine life force to build a life built on some bullshit that someone else told you is right and good and true? It's one of the reasons, like, I have been having this thought very much lately because I am not interested, for instance, in indoctrinating people to be copies of me. That is not what I do, right? What I do is I just keep pointing people back to their base root thing. And then you know what? I trust that thing. Whatever that thing is going to create is really none of my business. I support whatever anybody wants to create, but don't copy me. What kind of fucking bullshit is that? You're not me. Don't be me. I don't want people to be me. No, I want you to be you. I want you to be in service to the thing that the divine decided that you were here for. The perfect expression of that through all of through your body, through your particular body, through your particular experience, through your particular everything. That is actually what is so important. It's not for you to learn to copy. I don't teach people things. I teach people tools, how to hold themselves, how to hold their power, but mostly I destroy people. Like, people come to me to fucking be destroyed because all of this bullshit that people live behind, and then they don't trust the feminine power within them to fucking burn it down, and they see that as some victimized thing that they need to be afraid of. And so there's a process of realignment that's so important. But there's also a process of healing, okay, old stories. And then there's another process of actually retraining your nervous system. Like, that's like going to the gym. It is like spiritual, energetic gym boot camp for your feminine and for your physical being. It's a whole process. This shit doesn't happen overnight. It's like it's like a forever practice. It's like yoga. You know, I tell this to people, you know, particularly in Fire and Flow. It's like Fire and Flow is like it's like a yoga class, and different people are in different places, and you come and you work on your practice on your mat, you know, and I walk around the room and I adjust people, and that's it, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, we're practicing a practice. There's a thread and an idea of it, which is really the whole purpose of it, is like to bring people back to their truth, and then to be able to be responsible for this fucking life force energy. Like, really be responsible for it. What I teach in Magic Lit Business is a whole different model of business, because really traditional business is about pimping. It's spread your legs, baby. I got custies for ya. And you know what? That depletes the feminine. That's not how the masculine and the feminine are meant to relate. I'm gonna just say something that is a little controversial. Your job is not to obey a man. It's not about obeying a man. You obey reality. See, there's a twist here that happens with these teachings, which is like, I don't like it. Because generally, unless a man is like totally in service to the feminine and is 100% not about his ego, you are not obeying a man. If you are in service to the feminine, and if you're in service to the life force within you. See, my husband is in service to my life force, and he propagates my life force like a garden. He doesn't take from it. He is devoted to it, and it feeds both of us. It nourishes us, and it nourishes our family. And it is not about me obeying his leadership. It is about him like receiving the instruction from the clarity of my desire, of my intuition, and my knowing. And that is why our life is fucking rocking. So as you begin to like really take in teachings, I would like for you to reflect on whether or not that person has the life that you want. Okay? So there's lots of different ways to do this life. Many, many, many. Many, many, many. And you have to decide what's right for you. Okay? So this is not, also, I just want to say this is not an emasculation. My husband, energetically, he's the container. Like, he homes me. There's a really hot polarity between us here. There's no like, I'm not the boss. Like, let's just unwind some of that, because I hear it in your thoughts. And it's like, I am not the boss. I am in service to my deeper knowing. And the thing that I listen to, which by the way, half the time is really outside my preferences, because I don't have a golden pussy about life. What that means is my preferences do not run the show. My ego, because that's what it is, your preferences are your ego. My ego is in service to what my life force wants me to be in the world. And we are both in service to that. That's our partnership. That's our union. I am surrendered to the thing. I listen to the thing. I communicate the thing. And he receives the thing. And we go. See, there are a lot of men who are powered by pussy. And they're using their woman to be the generator for their ego. And there are some teachers teaching that. Fuel your man, obey your man, make your man great. Let me tell you something. I could make any man great. I have made so many men great. Every single man that I dated before Kellen has made more money than they ever would have before dating me. I can amplify anything. But you come to a point where you're like, spiritually, like, what am I using my energy to back? Could I be like a multi-millionaire? Yeah. Hi, I know how to play the masculine game. I totally can. And why don't I? Well, I have been experimenting with a new model, and I don't know yet whether or not the principles in which I live will produce that. I can tell you that it produces a beautiful level of organic growth and abundance and resources. And I'm never, ever, ever without anything, because I am so in service to the deeper thing. And so, tying this back in, when you feel anger and rage and resentment of the masculine, you need to do some deep internal looking to where you abandoned yourself, to where you didn't honor the feminine knowing, to where you made choices that participated in commerce, where you traded your life force for love, connection, safety, status, blah, 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 on and on and on and on. And that is what you're actually really angry about, is how you have deeply, deeply self-abandoned and abandoned the feminine and abandoned the deepest truth. And you traded it for some paltry fucking party favor. Because when you're really connected, you don't need to trade anything for that, and you won't. Let me tell you something. I wouldn't leave this spot within myself even for him. Because no man is worth that. And you know what? He would never ask me to. And that's why we're married. Yeah. You want a man who is in service to you, being in service to the deepest thing within you. Not who's constantly pulling for that energy to, like, he gets fed when the garden is grown. You know, I wrote a post about this, but it's like, you know, it's not about coming to the garden to pick the flowers. It's coming to the garden to water the flowers. To water the flowers and get the nourishment of watching them bloom. There's a lot of other things, but here's a lot of things to be angry about. And here's the hard truth. Everything that you don't like, that you complain about, that you feel victimized by, you are an active participant in. You actively participate. And my guess is that you are unwilling to serve the life force that would actually bring about the change that you desire, because you are unwilling to face the consequences of what that power actually holds. And there are consequences. There are consequences. See, when you can't be in alignment with the reality of consequences, of of cause and effect. And when you can't control every outcome just the way you want it, and you don't know how to meet things that are not sort of the way you expected it, then you're just a pawn of life. You're just in reaction to what happens to you. And then you're just going to complain about it. And see, like, I don't take a lot of people very seriously when they complain about stuff, because they talk a whole lot and then they continue participating. And so I don't take those people seriously. It's just sort of a waste of my attention and energy. But let me tell you something. When I see something that like really wants to change, and like there's like a fire, I'll amplify it. I'll back it. And that's what I do with my people that work with me. I will amplify and back the fire of your change with my fire, because I'm in service to that thing in you too, right? I'm in service to the thing. I'm not in service to people. I'm in service to the deepest life force that wants to come through and express through people, both in myself and in everybody else. But I can't do that if people come to me and say that they want it. But if people say they want it, I'm devoted to it. So don't get caught up in all of the academia. This is another thing I really want to talk about. Academia, mostly, is rooted in victim consciousness, okay? Academia is about the mind creating all kinds of explanations for things that justify one thing or another, and creates all kinds of words and vernacular. Most of our language is absolutely rooted in and founded in victim consciousness, and has shame and guilt and all kinds of things baked into the actual language. There's energetics in all of these words. So stay away from diagnoses. Stay away from they are this, yeah? I know that in our language, it's really hard not to use qualifiers, but it's damn important that you don't get caught up in that. Because what's happening is when you start being like, well, he's a narcissist, then you have dehumanized him. And what you're doing is you're not only defining a human being by their behavior, which is not who the person is, it's a software virus running on their system and their ego. And then not only have you dehumanized the person, but you have offloaded your responsibility of participation in the behavior that harmed you. And you can sit here and talk about me being a victim blamer all day long, but that's just more victim consciousness defending the position of the righteousness of the victim. And I don't care, you are entitled to that experience. But if you actually want to talk about power, if you want to talk about being in service to divine life force, if you want to talk about the feminine, then we need to talk about responsibility and surrender. So, yeah, okay, that feels complete. Anyway, yeah. If you are interested, if this called to you, and you want to talk to me, my message box is always open. You can ping me, and I don't have pages that sell my products, so it's pretty much like you have to come through me, and then we assess whether or not you are ready for the whole thing. So, okay, love to you all. Bye.